It is one of the most unsettling mysteries in the United States. Here is the story of Kristen Modafferi, an 18-year-old honor student who stepped into the fog of San Francisco on a bright June afternoon and was never seen again. The questions that swirl around her disappearance have haunted detectives, reporters, and her family for almost 3 decades, and the answers remain locked inside the city by the Bay. Kristen grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, a lively middle child in a house full of laughter and clatter. Friends remember her racing across soccer fields, balancing a camera around her neck, and scribbling plans for the future in a thick notebook covered with stickers. She earned a merit scholarship to North Carolina State University, where she studied industrial design but dreamed of making art that would move people. The summer of 1997 was supposed to be her first taste of wide-open freedom. She talked her parents into letting her spend 6 weeks in California so she could take an intensive photography course at UC Berkeley and soak up the creative energy of the West Coast. During her first 10 days in the Bay, Kristen acted like a tourist and a local at the same time. She trekked out to Alcatraz Island, crouched behind her lens to catch pelicans sweeping past the old prison. She bought day-old sourdough from Fisherman's Wharf to save money, hopped on streetcars, and mailed postcards packed with exclamation points. That Saturday, she hiked beneath the redwoods at Muir Woods with a classmate she had met on the BART. Back home, she tacked the entrance ticket to her bedroom wall, next to a handwritten bucket list. Photograph sunset at Baker Beach, July 4th, fireworks from Twin Peaks, Chinatown at dawn. The list stopped there, a fragment frozen in time. Monday, June 23, 1997, looked ordinary on the surface. Kristen woke before dawn, laced up running shoes still dusty from a weekend hike in Muir Woods, and left the house with her camera bag over one shoulder. She clocked in at Spinelli's, danced between espresso machines for 6 hours, and at lunch asked a coworker the best way to reach Baker Beach. She had heard the view of the Golden Gate Bridge from there was perfect for black and white shots. At 3:00 p.m., she signed her time card, grabbed her green backpack, and walked into the midday glare outside the cafe. She mentioned maybe meeting friends at the beach later. At 3:45 p.m., a stockbroker on the second level of the mall noticed Kristen strolling beside a tall blonde woman carrying a dark backpack. The two appeared relaxed, chatting like new friends, comparing weekend plans. That stranger has never been identified, and no one has stepped forward to say they were the blonde woman. The mall's security cameras were sparse in 1997, and the one that covered the mezzanine was pointed toward a bank kiosk rather than the walkway. By 4:00, the pair had vanished onto Market Street, swallowed by afternoon traffic. That fleeting glimpse was the last confirmed sighting of Kristen Modafferi alive. On Sunday, June 1st, she hugged her parents at Charlotte Douglas Airport, tossed her single duffel through the security scanner, and boarded a flight bound for San Francisco. The trip was a leap of faith. She had arranged housing through a listing board and knew no one in the Bay Area. Her mother, Debbie, slipped a phone card into her pocket and told her to call every night. Kristen promised she would. When the plane touched down, she felt like the world was opening in front of her. Golden hills on one side, the Pacific on the other, fog rolling over the Golden Gate like a living thing. Kristen's temporary home sat at 274 Jane Avenue in Oakland, a faded Victorian carved into cramped bedrooms and rented to students. Her 4 male roommates, names never made public, were polite but busy, each wrapped in jobs and summer classes. The kitchen was crowded, the street a patchwork of sirens, and the commute into the city took 40 minutes by bus and BART. Kristen told her sisters the noise thrilled her. Every horn and shouting vendor felt like proof she was finally living a grown-up life. To pay the bills, she landed a barista job at Spinelli's Coffee inside the Crocker Galleria. The mall's glass roof poured sunlight on marble floors, and bankers in gray suits lined up for her lattes each dawn. Kristen worked the early shift, starting at 7 a.m., which left her free to explore the city by afternoon. She was quick with names, remembered everyone's drink order, and never complained when she was splashed with hot milk. Coworkers said she talked endlessly about photographing street murals and watching the sun set over the ocean once her class started on June 24th. Her empty chair at dinner Monday did not raise alarms. Tenants in the Jane Avenue house floated in and out. But Tuesday morning her alarm clock chirped alone, and the door to her room stayed closed long after sunrise. She did not show up for another shift, did not appear for her much-anticipated first photography class, and did not collect the framed prints she had dropped off at a 1-hour lab. The city hummed on, unaware a young visitor was missing. In Charlotte, her parents assumed time zones had tangled their usual phone routine. They left messages on the house answering machine and waited. On Wednesday evening, June 25th, Bob Modafferi telephoned again. This time, a roommate picked up and admitted none of them had seen Kristen since Monday. Bob's voice went flat. He called the San Francisco Police Department from North Carolina and booked the first flight west. Kristen was formally listed as a missing adult on June 27th, 4 days after she left the coffee shop, and the formal investigation did not open until June 30th. That delay, investigators later said, cost them the precious first 48 hours in which most missing person cases are solved. Detectives assigned to the case viewed Kristen's age and adventurous spirit as signs she might have left by choice. California law allowed adults to vanish if they wished, and the city dealt with hundreds of such reports every year. Officers told Bob and Debbie to wait for a postcard. Kristen's parents bristled. Their daughter was reliable, responsible, and excited about her class. She had paid the full $925 tuition in advance and talked of nothing else for weeks. Running away made no sense. When police finally searched her small bedroom, they found her suitcase unpacked, clothes hung neatly in the tiny closet, and her plane ticket home for August sitting in a folder. All valuables lay untouched. What was missing, besides Kristen herself, were her green JanSport backpack and her camera. Her $400 paycheck from Spinelli's still waited in the manager's drawer, unclaimed. Investigators admitted these facts pointed toward foul play rather than a spontaneous road trip. By the first week of July, the search had spilled onto national television. Kristen's case aired on America's Most Wanted, and CNN ran a special segment titled Missing in the City by the Bay. Viewers phoned in hundreds of tips, sightings in Portland, Denver, even as far as Tijuana, but none panned out. The coverage did, however, hammer home a difficult truth. Disappearances were not just late-night fiction. They happened in broad daylight, on busy streets, to people whose lives seemed bright and safe. For many young adults watching at home, Kristen became a symbol of the fragile line between adventure and danger. Hoping for new leads, officers brought in 2 veteran bloodhounds. The dogs caught Kristen's scent at the Grant Avenue entrance of the mall, followed it onto the crowded 38-Geary bus, and hopped off near the western terminus at Sutro Heights Park. From there, they dragged handlers through eucalyptus groves toward the cliffs of Land's End. High above the crashing surf, they abruptly stopped, circled, and whined as though the trail simply dissolved. Police searched the steep path for hours, but found no trace of a fall, no torn fabric, no scattered film canisters. The wide ocean stared back, silent. Back at the house in Oakland, detectives combed Kristen's belongings. In a Bay Guardian newspaper dated June 21st, they discovered a personal ad circled in dark ink. The ad asked for female friends who like adventure, music, and late nights. Investigators traced many similar ads, but never located the person who placed that one. Whether Kristen answered it remains unknown, but the note added a chilling twist. Had she arranged a Monday meeting with a stranger? Then, on July 10th, a shocking phone call jolted the case. A 36-year-old man named John Onuma rang the KGO TV news desk and claimed Kristen had been murdered by 2 jealous women who dumped her body under a wooden bridge at Point Reyes, far up the coast. Onuma sounded frantic, weaving details that seemed too specific to ignore. Police stormed the rugged park the next morning, combing marshes and streams beneath sun-bleached planks. They found nothing. When detectives traced Onuma's call back to San Francisco, they discovered he lived blocks from the mall with his girlfriend, Louise Lampo. Under questioning, Onuma admitted he had never met Kristen and had fabricated the story to harass a former coworker who worked at Spinelli's. He wanted police to blame the women he disliked. Inside his apartment, investigators found lists of female names and cryptic notes, but no evidence linking him to Kristen. The FBI interviewed the pair, eventually clearing them, but the public damage was done. The sensational tip sucked weeks of energy from the search and left the family shattered. Other theories sprouted like weeds. Some speculated Kristen slipped on the cliffs and was claimed by the sea. Others felt she might have been lured into a drug scene near the Tenderloin, or kidnapped by someone she met on the bus. Rumors circulated that her backpack was seen in a pawn shop across the bay, but that lead fizzled. Detectives pressed every possible witness, but urban memory is short. By autumn, calls slowed to a trickle. The case slid toward the cold file cabinet, labeled missing, presumed dead. 18 years later, hope sparked again. In October 2015, two private forensic investigators hired by the Modafferi family brought cadaver dogs to the Jane Avenue house, now occupied by a new set of tenants. The dogs zeroed in on the basement, barking at a thick concrete pillar that supported the floor above. Ground-penetrating radar picked up voids under the slab, and chemical tests hinted at the presence of human decomposition. To the team, it felt like standing on top of the answer. A small core sample was extracted in 2017, and laboratory analysis revealed a partial DNA profile that matched markers from Bob and Debbie Modafferi's reference swabs. The probability that the material came from an unrelated person was minuscule. Yet because the profile was incomplete, authorities hesitated, calling it inconclusive. The city declined a full excavation, citing cost and the risk of structural damage. The concrete was patched, the basement locked, and the case slipped back into limbo. Debbie Modafferi, Kristen's mother, has spent holidays writing letters to mayors, governors, and forensic experts. She keeps her daughter's bedroom exactly as it was in 1997, down to the Polaroids taped on the mirror. Each Christmas she hangs Kristen's stocking and slips a note inside. "We're still looking." Her three surviving daughters, Allison, Lauren, and Megan, now raise families of their own, but every gathering includes an empty seat and a candle that burns until sunrise. They say sharing Kristen's laughter and quick wit with the next generation keeps her present in ways a case file never could. Bob Modafferi never gave up. He flew to California dozens of times, retraced the bus route to Land's End, and kept in touch with every detective assigned to the file. In April 2022, after a long fight with cancer, he died at the age of 73. His final wish, according to family, was for someone, anyone, to pick up the shovel and look again beneath that basement. On his headstone in Charlotte, the words "Turn over one more rock" are carved beneath a photo of Kristen smiling on the Golden Gate Bridge. Since 2023, new voices have joined the call. Genetic genealogy labs that once cracked the Golden State Killer have offered pro bono help if the city will release the basement sample for retesting. Online forums swap theories night after night, comparing bus schedules and tide charts from June 1997. A retired homicide detective told SF Gate in 2023 that he still keeps Kristen's file on his desk, convinced a single tip could break the case wide open. Technology has leapt forward. A speck of dust under that pillar could now reveal a whole family tree. All the search needs is permission. Digital detectives sift through the tiniest crumbs for patterns: a blurry barista schedule, an unclaimed roll of film, the timing of an ATM withdrawal across town. Algorithms compare ride-share data to archived cell tower pings, building maps of who could have crossed Kristen's path in that window of freedom between 3:00 and 4:00 p.m. Some nights, a researcher in Singapore trades theories with a truck driver in Ohio, both strangers united by the need to finish a story that feels personal. The case has become a living puzzle, a reminder that empathy can travel farther than any airline ticket. To walk the streets of San Francisco today is to feel Kristen's presence in small, startling ways. Her missing person poster still hangs in the break room at Spinelli's, now a different brand of coffee house. Tour guides passing the Crocker Galleria mention the day a young woman vanished between two bus rides and remind visitors to stay in pairs. Locals who were children in 1997 tell their own kids not to linger on the cliffs at Land's End after dark. One life interrupted has rippled across thousands of others, a reminder that the city's beauty can hide sudden danger. And that brings us back to the single question that matters. Where is Kristen Modafferi? If you stood beside her in that mall, if you rode the 38 Geary that afternoon, if you placed that personal ad, or if you are the blonde woman who walked beside her, the Modafferi family is still waiting. Contact the San Francisco Police Cold Case Unit. Leave a comment under this video, share the story, and subscribe for more unsolved mysteries. Together we keep the light on for Kristen until the day truth steps out of the fog and answers at last. Even the smallest recollection, the color of a jacket, the echo of a laugh, a forgotten snapshot shoved in a shoebox, could tilt the balance from mystery to justice. Your voice might be the one that leads her home.